shortly after Ann and I married, we moved into our first home, and you know, we're newlyweds and new family, new with kids, and we had our son, and I think our daughter was just born, so we'd been there a couple of years. Because we'd lived in an apartment before. Now we're in our first home, and we thought, okay, we want to get to know our neighbors, and so there was 2 doors down was this young family just like ours, and he worked for an oil company and traveled a bit. And they had 2 kids just like us, and so we were at some like block party that was going on, and I said, hey, you want to get together for coffee or lunch sometime? I'd love to get to know you a little more. And he kind of looked at me like, yeah, okay. And so we met up for lunch near kind of halfway between where we worked. And we sat down for lunch. As soon as we ordered, he just leans over the table and he looks at me and he goes, we can be friends, but as long as you don't talk to me about Jesus. I was like, excuse me? He goes, well, I know you work at a church, and we can be friends, but just don't talk to me about Jesus. And I was like, whoa, Lord, where do I go from that, you know? Mm-hmm. And I feel like the Lord just helped me, and I said, well, you know, he's the very center of my life. He's everything. He's changed my life. I was not a really good person. He's turned my life around, given me a wonderful family. And so I'll never push anything on you, but it's going to come out from time to time just because it just does. But I'll never push anything on you. I will never try to preach at you. But it's going to slip out just because he's at my everything. So I hope that's okay. And he goes, okay, I'm good with that. And so we started getting together for coffee. Every once in a while, our families started doing barbecue and things like that. And my wife and his wife Ann and her began to get together for coffee, and the kids get together. And he and I found out we both loved to mountain bike ride. And so we'd get out and ride in the dirt and the hills, and we both loved to fish. And so we just started doing stuff together, and pretty soon he just became a really dear friend. In fact, I'm a brand new dad, and he shared with me some stories of his traveling and things that he was learning about what being a good dad is and making time for his kids. And honestly, I sat there and learned from him some really great lessons on fatherhood. And anyway, one day we'd had lunch, and he brought me back. He had picked me up and brought me back to the church where I was working. And I'm getting ready to get out of the truck, and he goes, hold on. I said, what? And he goes, one more thing. I said, okay. He goes, would you tell me how I can know Jesus like you do? I think I'd like to do that. And I was like, wow. Because I was sharing answer to prayers. I was sharing things that I was learning. I was sharing about things we're doing with our kids. I was just kind of living out loud about as a follower of Jesus, but never preaching to him, never. And so here he was saying, now I'm ready. I want to hear. And so right there, I just shared the gospel, and he prayed and surrendered his life to Christ and began a follower of Jesus. Wow. And it was just awesome, God was just showing me how that, because before that time, I always thought sharing the gospel meant I had to do my spiel. And now the Lord is just showing me, just like when Jesus, like the woman at the well, you go, you strike a conversation, you show them love, you show them that you care. Jesus, his conversation, the fact that he would even talk to her, the fact that he would show her value, the fact that he made some statements to her about God's looking for worshipers, as if to say, like you could be one, He's just showing her that she matters, that she's valuable, and it changes her whole life. And so it's like it changed my view of how I share. And now where we are in the Middle East, You just give someone an ear and listen and ask questions and really show them that you care and that you're interested, and all kinds of opportunities open up. And it doesn't have to take weeks. It can be within a few days, or
Mm-hmm.
but